Dr. Balthazar here, still playing catch-up on some video essay requests. Thank you for those. Today we have Warfare from earlier this year. That feels like a bit of a placeholder title for a war movie, but okay, finding titles for movies, shows, and YouTube videos is a colossal pain in the ass if you aren't celebrating or attacking something in a really one-dimensional way. If anyone stumbled across my channel for the first time, I don't make videos hoping to persuade people to watch or avoid something. I have an analytical mind, so I analyze movies and shows, offering up my thoughts on context, storyline, characters, world-building, and themes as I understand them, which typically means spoiling the endings of whatever I'm breaking down. So I prefer to wait until something comes to streaming services before I weigh in, like Warfare has come to HBO Max. That way viewers can check it out for themselves before coming to me, if they so desire. So that's me, you're you, but what is Warfare from 2025? Let's get into it. For context, the movie is written and directed by former Navy SEAL Ray Mendoza in collaboration with Alex Garland of 28 Days Later writer fame and Ex Machina director fame. When it comes to skill tasks, there's 4 basic levels of understanding everyone fits into: novice, adequate, proficient, and master. A novice cannot successfully accomplish a skill task without support. For example, 2005's Sin City, where Frank Miller was carried through his directorial debut by Robert Rodriguez, whose influence was made obvious when Miller didn't have him on hand for that piece of shit movie The Spirit that he directed by himself in 2008. Inadequate can technically meet the minimal expectations of a skill task on their own, but nothing more. An example there is Nia DaCosta directing The Marvels. She did in fact get footage of the scenes listed in the shot list, but when it came time to edit those into a story, was told to go have lunch for reasons that aren't hard to figure out. A proficient can do well with a skill task, but only in one specific way. James Gunn's movies will always have a flippant tone, a group of misfits who don't like each other but discover they're best friends, and an intrusive soundtrack. J.J. Abrams will always have dumb fuck mystery boxes, and a pace that's deliberately frantic, in the hope that viewers won't have time to ask questions about the plot. Dr. Balthazar's videos will always have humor, B-roll from the film, and some playful applications of the doctrine to stills. Well, never mind about that. Anyway, you get it. One reliably predictable approach done well, not multiple approaches. A master can flexibly employ a range of methods to accomplish skill tasks in a variety of ways. For example, Alfred Hitchcock moving across different film genres to great success telling very different stories. So obviously Mendoza was a novice director, but he recognized that fact and worked in close collaboration with Garland, which was great. There's nothing wrong with being a novice when one recognizes it and works to improve incrementally over time with the help of a mentor. So all this is to say the movie wasn't impaired by Mendoza being a first-time director. The next contextual point relates to subgenres found in war films that are similar to non-fiction books. When it comes to publications on war, there's basically 2 categories. Primary sources from former combatants that, for the most part, seek to express the personal emotions felt during the experience, and secondary sources from military historians that, for the most part, seek to inform readers on cause and effect related to the conflict. Movies tend to do better with the first category than the second. They're visceral by nature and limited by how much they can show of anything that involves large groups of people and still makes sense. Battles often stretch over miles, and wars often last for years involving millions of participants. So it's hard for a movie to present something of that size and scope. And besides, viewers tend to respond better to emotional appeals than logical explanations anyway. Movies make moments. Documentaries make explanations. A film project on the informed viewers end of the spectrum that sought to accurately and objectively explain cause and effect is Tora Tora Tora's handling of Pearl Harbor, which did okay in 1970, but it's easier to have representative or metaphorical stuff that presents the general spirit of the thing, rather than dive into details when it comes to portraying armed conflicts, like the movie Deer Hunter from 1978. Nope, no one played Russian roulette in Vietnam. Not once, not ever. 100% metaphor related to the stress of war. On the expressed personal emotions end of the spectrum, we have City of Life and Death's handling of the rape of Nanjing. Films can be oddly conversational at times. Japan in the early 2000s had a lot of World War II revisionist history going on, presenting themselves in a far more heroic light than others tend to do. Their movies often presented their side of the conflict as sort of a noble sacrifice for a lost cause thing, a la the South in the Civil War, with a romanticized tone akin to Michael Bay's Pearl Harbor. Chinese cinema basically said, okay, you want to talk about what you motherfuckers did to our people during your occupation? We can do that. Let's do that, you miserable mother. Among those astoundingly bitter and graphic entries, City of Life and Death from 2009 distinguishes itself with some truly raw emotional devastation. Be careful if you decide to take that one on. It's a gut punch. So where does the vaguely titled Warfare fall on that spectrum? It's a day-in-the-life memoir by Ray Mendoza, so you aren't going to be better informed on the strategic aims of the Second Gulf War, or any tactical objectives connected to the Battle of Ramadi in 2006, but you may better understand the personal emotions of a small group of soldiers who took part in that conflict. The storyline opens with text that declares the movie to be based on memory, and therefore true. And while the veracity of memory, especially under times of duress, has proven questionable at every turn, we'll take that at face value for the moment. We then move into a bit of brevity, soldiers having a laugh while watching a music video, which contrasts well with the grim silence of a night patrol. The main characters set up shop in a 2-story home.
Building 5, 8.
They're a squad of Navy SEALs gathering intelligence data and providing sniper cover in an urban center. The movie does a good job communicating the overabundance of incoming information and the ambiguity of what information matters and what doesn't. It also does a good job offsetting action with the tedium of nothing happening, which grinds on the men. The team suffers some minor injuries from a skirmish of unseen enemies and calls in a transport to move out a wounded man. Good technical decision to keep the enemy largely unseen. This keeps the perspective of the viewer limited to what the characters know and creates tension by withholding information. Is there danger on the other side of that window? Or not? They don't know, so we don't know. Distrust between American and Iraqi troops working together in combined action platoons as translators is spotlighted, and it suggests that the Iraqis are less disciplined soldiers than the Americans, to put it charitably. While boarding the transport, the team is attacked with an IED, or improvised explosive device, which is an umbrella term for any kind of homemade anything that blows up. Close camera angles and smoke are utilized to obscure perspective, and sound is manipulated by offsetting muffled and amplified dialogue and effects to communicate the assault on the senses that comes with the modern war zone. It's a trick they maybe go to too many times in the second and third acts, reducing its impact, but okay, novice director. The team recoups and tends to the wounded and calls in reinforcements. Aside from the two men whose legs are torn up, the rest of the squad are debilitated by concussions and stress. So essentially they're declaring themselves combat ineffective, too injured to function as soldiers, so they need to be helped to safety. An eye-in-the-sky camera shot helps the audience visualize the layout of the neighborhood before cutting to the rest of the platoon running down the street, so we aren't lost in a geography of similar-looking terrain. Requests for another armored transport vehicle are denied, so one of the SEALs impersonates a commanding officer to overrule that decision and reallocate those resources to their position. They get the wounded into another set of transports.
Elliot, right side, Sam on the west side.
Elliot, right, roger that.
Strafe the second story of buildings in the neighborhood, which hopefully didn't contain non-combatants like the building they were in, and evacuate the area. Roll credits. For characters, the movie seems to prefer a representative sample of soldier types, rather than true-to-life individuals that we get to know on a deeply personal level. Or maybe that was just a swing and a miss. During the end credits, they show side-by-sides with the actors and the actual people they portrayed, blurring out the ones who were fictionalized on some level or whose privacy they just wanted to protect. There's a decent cross-section of soldier types: the savvy veteran, the fresh-faced rookie, the far too gung-ho type ramping up from stress, the far too impassive type shutting down from stress, and the majority who are just working hard to do what they've been trained to do through different degrees of injury. But in terms of growth, development, or deep understanding of characters, there isn't much there. We don't get to know these men or form deep connections with them, which limits some of the emotional impact of the film. Maybe Mendoza and Garland could have included a scene or two before deploying into the field of operations to flesh out the characters and create more investment in them. The movie is only 90 minutes long, so it felt like they maybe had some time to work with there, but it's possible they wanted to keep the focus on what the soldiers went through, not who they were. For world building, the movie works hard to be true to life. There isn't an action scene where the lead does impossible feats of daring, or physics are suddenly disregarded to make a special effect look even more impressive. Some of the features in modern combat, large and small, are well expressed, like the importance of collecting gear so you don't hand it over to the opposition, challenges related to communication, and making sense of ambiguous logistical information. What does one make of all the comings and goings of people in an urban war zone? Is this guy a threat or not? Does an aberrant sound mean something or not? Is there something on the other side of these windows or not? And that's before we add stress into the mix. It's not easy to think under duress. For example, characters struggle to remember details.
Where are you guys?
We're Bill.
Yeah, I gave you the morphine.
Did you do it in my arm? Which side are we getting Elliot out on? Elliot?
In the storyline section, I gave you the building's number, showed you the morphine administration, and included a soundbite telling you which sides the wounded men would be loaded into. Did you remember all three from only moments ago with no stress to impair your memory? Also done well is the visceral effect of gore. Modern armaments tear apart flesh, and having body parts lying in the street without dramatic effect is good mise-en-scène. It's communicating something aberrant as ordinary, which gets across a bit of the impossibility of reason felt in war zones. The internal damage of concussive force is also well expressed, as soldiers struggle with cognition and fine motor skills after being too close to an explosion or two or three. Outwardly, they look fine, but on the inside, they're also casualties. For themes, we have various types of tension related to combat, from general discomfort and boredom waiting for something to happen, to the chaotic stress and confusion of bullets flying. The film showcases the bonds of brotherhood shared by soldiers putting their lives in each other's hands. It isn't groundbreaking stuff, unless you wanted to selectively compare it to campy war films from yesteryear and pretend nobody's done anything else in the genre, from All Quiet on the Western Front in 1930 to today. But I don't think the movie is looking to offer groundbreaking stuff on the topic of war. It's trying to express the personal experience of a veteran, which is important. A good book on the impact warfare has on its combatants is Achilles in Vietnam: Combat Trauma and the Undoing of Character, by Jonathan Shea, who worked with combat veterans struggling with PTSD as a clinical psychiatrist for many years. One of the points he emphasizes to the reader is being willing to listen to veterans, not trying to frame their experience into something less unpleasant, or provide a perspective that makes things seem better, or any other well-intentioned but without understanding approach. Just listen if they're willing to talk and thank them if they do. My impression of the movie Warfare is that Ray Mendoza is trying to talk about his experiences as a soldier, and I sincerely thank him for his service and his willingness to share what it was like for him. Both showed great courage. But there's two other themes to touch on, one done well and one I have some reservations about as a viewer. Friction between allied U.S. and Iraqi forces is a common theme throughout the two Gulf Wars, and the movie does a good job giving the topic some balance. The Iraqi troops are portrayed as poor soldiers, failing to control their fears and having to repeatedly be told their tasks. And while the movie doesn't clarify these guys are usually just translators with a minimum of military training, it does take the time to express some of their perspective. The SEAL team never bothers to explain anything to them with any clarity, giving them the impression that they were being used as cannon fodder to catch bullets, which may have been true to some degree if we're being fair. The Iraqi translators led the column out to their transports, which was surprising. They're easily the weakest soldiers, so they're the least likely to identify and respond to threats on the street, which would make them the worst choice to lead the group out. But on the other hand, the enemy has undoubtedly seen a pattern of behavior with these transport vehicles, so there's a strong possibility they're set up to get a shot on whoever comes out of the house first. So who are you most okay with taking that bullet? Maybe there's a very different rationale for having them first out the house, but Mendoza chooses not to express it, which leaves the viewer thinking maybe the Iraqi translators had some valid reasons for distrusting their American allies, which, correct or not, was pretty even-handed. The other theme is a fairly universal one of soldiers of the line, frustration of officers. When the request for more armored transport to take the men to safety was refused, they impersonated a high-ranking officer to reallocate those assets to help themselves. From a film narrative standpoint, that's fine. It's a subordinate outsmarting a supervisor kind of thing, which is fun. Like an employee getting over on their idiot manager, which viewers can identify with. But if that was legit, we're talking about impersonating an officer during a time of war, which can lead to a conviction under Article 106 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, resulting in court-martial, dishonorable discharge, forfeiture of pay, and/or up to 3 years in prison. We don't know for certain why the transports were refused, and maybe they ought not to have been. But the chain of command doesn't work that way. Commanding officers don't make decisions, issue orders, and hope they're followed instead of change into something the enlisted men prefer. The deceptions save the lives of the 2 wounded, but maybe it costs the lives of 2 other men. Maybe it costs the lives of 20 other men. Maybe it costs the lives of women, children, and other non-combatants in the surrounding buildings when they raked the neighborhood to cover their retreat. We don't know, so let's not assume. But did this really happen this way? Or are we looking at false memory? It wasn't Mendoza who impersonated the high-ranking officer, nor was he in the same room at the time. So maybe the initial request for evac was delayed. In frustration, someone blurted out something along the lines of pretending to be the commanding officer to push it through, and Mendoza assumed that was what happened when it did go through. Or maybe the scene had even less substance to it than that, but became a rumor, and for whatever reason it was repeated enough times to be incorrectly remembered as fact by multiple people. Impossible to say, but if the film's goal was to show how officers of questionable competence were a theme, maybe they could have taken a different approach to get it across. In summary, the movie Warfare from 2025 is a day-in-the-life memoir from a veteran that is well done. As a reader, I prefer military history to personal memoir. That's just where my preferences have led me over the years, and the medium of film doesn't work well at those kinds of writings. It's probably age as much as disposition, but it's hard to watch a war movie and root for one side to kill the other, which has soured the genre for me over the years. Viewers familiar with my channel may wonder why I didn't meme the Doctor into different situations or crack jokes like I usually do. But to be honest, I just don't want to treat the subject or a veteran's experiences with brevity of any kind. As a young person, it's easy to get worked up about group membership and the idea of an enemy who isn't one of us. So kill the motherfucker. And really enjoy the action of war films. Which, fine, no judgment, but that's not where I'm at. For those that take an interest in war movies, I already mentioned several films in a book. But let's prescribe a pair of miniseries that are well done. Band of Brothers for the Second World War, and Generation Kill for more of the Second Gulf War. Anyway, if you're still here, give some thought to hitting the subscribe button, and YouTube may recommend you more of my work. Hard to say, fickle platform, a lot of gatekeeping. Anyway, I'm Dr. Balzar. Like what you like, don't you don't. It's all your call, Kemosabe.